Today, we're going to recap a sci-fi drama movie titled Real Life, released in 2016. The story revolves around a successful artist who discovers he has less than a year to live, so he opts to freeze his body. 70 years later, he awakens in a completely unfamiliar world, filled with uncertainty about his existence. In 2084, nurse Elizabeth Mansford gets a position at the advanced medical facility, Prodigy Health Corporation. She becomes one of the assistants to the brilliant Dr. Victor West. Excited, Elizabeth enters the facility with a secretary by her side. They walk next to a holographic representation of Dr. West. The hologram informs them about the doctor's quest for the key to immortality through their latest program. Before moving on, the employee reminds Elizabeth about her confidentiality contract regarding the project. Elizabeth agrees and soon meets the eccentric Dr. West. The doctor takes her on a comprehensive tour of the vast facility, introducing her to their ambitious project called Lazarus. After 4 years of experimental research, the doctors have achieved the pinnacle of fully reviving their test subject. Dr. West presents a holographic representation of Lazarus' physical design, pointing out what to retain and what needs bionic enhancement. Elizabeth is assigned the task of getting to know the test subject within 4 weeks, as she will be his caretaker and partner. She then asks for Lazarus' real name, but they don't answer her question. In the meantime, over 6 decades in the past, Marc Jarvis drives his car, reminiscing about his childhood memories. He fondly remembers playing and finding solace in his parents' embrace. Marc wonders why time seems slower during our youth compared to our perception as adults. Marc's car comes to a halt, and he sits in a dazed state, looking at the diagnostic test result as he drives to the hospital. When he gets there, the attending physician informs Marc of his terminal situation. He has been diagnosed with throat cancer, and the doctor estimates that he has about a year to live. Devastated, Marc seems terribly confused, questioning why he has such a disease despite never having smoked in his life. The doctor offers alternatives such as chemotherapy to slow down the process, but Marc says he needs more time to think about it. Getting things ready for his absence, he organizes his remaining projects with his employees and shares his situation with close friends and colleagues. He gets different reactions from them, usually a mix of shock, confusion, and sadness. Marc also has to tell his mother that she will outlive him. Overwhelmed by fear, Marc starts freaking out, getting rid of all his possessions before getting lost in the darkness of the night. Soon after, his lover Naomi finds him wandering at night, embracing and comforting him. As they lie in bed, Marc encourages her to move on and reunite with Steve, her ex-boyfriend. Naomi refuses, determined to stay by his side until the end. Some time later, Marc gathers some friends and opens up about the idea of undergoing cryostasis after reading an article about it. However, his friends and partner mostly see it as an attempt to cope with his terminal illness. By the end of the night, everyone cautiously agrees to support his plan. In 2084, we see medical professionals carefully monitoring Lazarus' vital signs in preparation for the highly anticipated revival. Back in 2015, his friend Charles expresses doubt about Marc's plan after reading about people dying due to company negligence. Naomi clearly has a difficult time accepting his decision and angrily interrupts, doubting that anyone would bother thawing and reviving him in the future. Nevertheless, Marc insists on avoiding his father's fate of slowly succumbing to a terminal illness. Marc asks them to be present during his final hours, making Naomi feel even worse about the whole idea. We then see a vision of Marc standing alone by the ocean, immersing himself in a whirlpool and descending into darkness. He slowly emerges into a bright light. Marc wakes up with blurry vision and hears voices calling his name in excitement. His heart races and he panics. So the nurse quickly puts an oxygen mask over his face. Shortly after, Marc sees his new reflection in a mirror. Dr. West introduces himself and asks how Marc's body feels. He tells the physician that everything hurts, but the doctor assures him that the pain will go away eventually. Over time, Marc learns that his new body consists of clone parts, bionic enhancements, and internal technology. He even has a detachable umbilical cord connecting him to a machine that supports his life. Despite experiencing various bodily and organ malfunctions, Dr. West addresses them through additional surgeries and medications. As Marc gradually adapts to his new life, he learns to walk again with the help of the medical team and Elizabeth. After a leg exercise, Marc is taken to his new room, where his thoughts turn to Naomi. The following day, Marc does some hand exercises to improve his condition. He suddenly asks Dr. West about the world outside, but the doctor responds that things aren't that much different. Dr. Gethers enters the room carrying a device called the Mind Writer, which allows humans to see their memories and also record them. The doctor encourages Marc to use the device to document his journey, as people will be curious about the first successfully revived man. When Dr. West sees that he is confused, he explains that people have invested in his revival, so he must be ready to face the media. Given only a few moments with the device, Marc is overwhelmed by a flood of memories that overstimulate his senses. Dr. Sarah warns them not to overstimulate the patient and heads out to his office. Dr. West then encourages Marc to keep experimenting with the device and let his memories flow from his mind. The memories unfold slowly, encompassing moments with his parents, friends, and professional accomplishment. Eventually, the focus narrows to one person, Naomi. Some time later, Elizabeth helps Marc with a bed bath, and she informs him that it is normal now for people to choose their children's traits before they're born. Curious about Elizabeth's personal life, Marc is surprised to find out that casual relationships without emotional attachment have become common in the present time. To Marc's surprise, Elizabeth even suggests they get physical once his condition improves. Marc wakes up in the middle of the night and walks to the mirror, catching a glimpse of his older self. The vision overwhelms him, and he falls to the floor. Struggling, Marc tries to crawl back to bed as an alarm goes off in his room. He eventually manages to reach his bed and reconnect with the cord. Elizabeth rushes to his side, filled with panic, just before he loses consciousness. While unconscious, Marc has another memory of himself driving a car on a freeway with his friends laughing in the backseat. Since Marc's memories seem to bum him out, he decides to discuss the issue with his doctors. During the meeting, they discover that his memories are actually deteriorating, but they advise him to continue using the mind writer. He then asks to talk with Dr. West alone. Marc is informed that his chances of a complete return to normal are slim, although gradual improvement is likely. The doctor encourages Marc to take pride in being a pioneer, representing a significant step forward for humanity. On his way back to his room, Marc remembers a film about the resurrection of Lazarus by Jesus Christ. Like himself, the biblical character also faced confusion and resentment toward his revival. Time passes, and Marc progresses to using a spin bike for exercise. Elizabeth assures him that he will soon be outside, as his new lungs need time to adapt to the environment. The way she kisses and hugs him highlights their connection as partners. The nurse playfully covers his eyes, and the staff enters the room, surprising Marc with a cake. They greet him happily, celebrating his 100th day after being brought back to life. As a gift, Marc gets a box containing his old belongings from the beginning of the century. As he rifles through, Marc finds a letter from Naomi. The letter triggers a reflection on their relationship, starting from their first meeting. They met in college, where they had a long-term affair behind Steve's back. Just when she eventually ends her relationship to be with Marc, he begins to explore other romantic options, much to Naomi's disappointment. The unavailability pattern continues among them until Marc is diagnosed with cancer, which leads Naomi to finally express her love and stay with him. However, Marc chooses to freeze his body when it is still somewhat healthy instead of living a full year in her company. That night, Elizabeth offers to read Naomi's letter aloud. Marc discovers that Naomi also chose cryostasis when she was 50 and dying, hoping for a future reunion between them. Upon learning this, Marc asks the doctors about the location of Naomi's body, where he finds a disturbing scene, a room filled with frozen individuals waiting to be revived. He also learns that reviving someone takes a lot of resources and that he was selected due to his great physical condition. The doctors assure him that they will do their best to study Naomi's case, although her chances of success are lower. Shortly after, Marc reflects on his decision to undergo cryostasis. He recalls another unclear memory of him and Naomi at the beach. As they go through their last fight, Naomi accuses Marc of being self-centered, as his life matters to people other than himself. Soon after, Elizabeth shaves Marc's head. While Elizabeth prepares his medication, he appears unexpectedly and asks her about the number of procedures performed before his revival. Her vague response makes the man question the ethics of the whole thing. She assures him that the doctors will eventually find a way to bring Naomi back. Marc's increasing anxiety is quickly noticed by his doctors and nurse. Dr. Sarah informs the others that Marc is starting to emotionally detach after encountering Naomi and his memories. Elizabeth expresses her concern about Marc and suggests letting him experience the outside world to relax. However, the doctors immediately reject her suggestion, fearing it is too early to expose him to the media. She urges them to be honest with Marc about his memory loss, but Dr. Sarah is concerned it could worsen his condition. Later that night, Elizabeth brings Marc some pills and informs him that the doctors have approved a physical encounter between them. However, it turns out to be too soon for Marc, and he starts reflecting on humanity's desire for life after death. Marc then breaks into Dr. West's room and takes some of his personal mind writer chips. He discovers that they contain information on previous patients. All of them experienced negative effects, ranging from organ malfunctions to severe mental disorders. It turns out Marc is not the first to be revived, but the first to live somewhat normally. Soon after, Dr. West gathers investors and proudly delivers a speech about their achievement of reviving a human being. He then introduces Marc to them. The audience becomes captivated and gives him a standing ovation. Inspired by the investors' reaction, West announces the love story of Marc and Naomi and promotes his upcoming project. He reveals that their next subject will be Naomi, aiming to reunite the lovers. Marc watches Dr. West from a distance, his face devoid of emotion. After the event, Dr. West and Marc have a confrontation where the patient questions the doctor's concept of immortality. He sees himself as a monster created by modern medicine. The doctor explains that the Lazarus Project has become Marc's life, and he must accept both the positive and negative sides. Realizing the truth in West's words, Marc walks to his bed while the doctor says he is sorry for not being able to address his loneliness. Marc then recalls a party where he openly declared his love for Naomi, and they dance throughout the night with their friends. Noticing something in his memory, Marc goes to where Naomi's body is kept. He embraces the cryogenic chamber with a longing look. After not seeing Marc in his bed, Elizabeth finds him and asks how he is doing. Although he claims to be fine, his sadness is evident. Finally, Marc shares his final thoughts about when he decided to put an end to his days with Naomi and his friends. He says the last few months leading up to his planned demise were the happiest moments he ever experienced. He used death as a reason to live life to the fullest, and cryostasis was just an excuse. Marc realizes he never truly expected to be brought back. He states that the best part of being alive again was meeting Elizabeth and seeing her smile. However, Marc now needs her to share the name of the medication that will restore things to the way they should be. Elizabeth initially sobs uncontrollably but eventually agrees to his request. In the following days, Marc begins recording his remaining memories for the scientists. Afterwards, he searches for the medication recommended by Elizabeth. While preparing it, he remembers a similar act in the past. After taking some medication back then, Naomi stayed with him until his last breath. In the present, Marc takes the medication and slowly walks back to Naomi. He hugs her chamber and closes his eyes. To his dismay, a bright light flashes before him, and he overhears voices discussing how lucky they are to have found him in time. The team apologizes for not inspiring Marc's will to live and assures him that it won't happen again. Marc realizes that eternal peace won't be so easily granted to him. Thanks for watching. If you like our content, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe.